So hello everyone and welcome back to Edie's long-running Susty Talk series. These are our series of video interviews with sustainability leaders from across the UK and beyond, designed to help keep us all a little bit more connected. We launched these virtually at first in early 2020 at the start of COVID-19. The UK was in lockdown, but I'm delighted to be here at ED23 today, our biggest face-to-face event of the year, for some in-person Susty Talks live and in the flesh from the Susty Talk sofa, kindly sponsored by Persephone. So if you're new to ED23, welcome. As I mentioned, this is our biggest event of the year, and it is our premier annual event dedicated to environmental and social transformations and courageous business leadership. And for consumer goods brands, undoubtedly one of the major transformations we're seeing at the moment is in relation to a circular economy for packaging, also ingredients and products as well. So I'm delighted to be joined to explore that topic by Upcircle Beauty's co-founder Anna Brightman and Bird & Blend Tea's co-founder Krisi Smith. So thank you both so much for joining me here on the Susty Talk sofa here at ED23. Great to have two founders of sustainability-minded SMEs on the sofa today. By means of introduction, it'd be great to ask each of you a little bit about your brand and a little bit about your current packaging portfolio as well to start off with. So can I begin with you, please, Anna?
So, as the name implies, Upcircle is a skincare brand centered entirely around circular economy principles through both our innovative sourcing of upcycled ingredients, but also our circular approach to packaging. We have an industry-leading packaging return scheme, which is eligible on every single product within our range. That's grown massively in the last 3 years since it's launched. In fact, it's currently growing 20% month on month, which is crazy behind the scenes, as you can imagine. But we also are probably most known for our sourcing of upcycled ingredients. So we intercept byproducts from other industries at the point at which those industries would have discarded those ingredients and sort of reprocess them for use in skincare. We started 7 years ago with coffee, so we go to local cafes, bars and restaurants collecting their used coffee grounds, collecting at the moment on average 100 kilograms per day, and we turn those into our signature scrub range. But since then, our upcycled ingredient portfolio has diversified a lot, and we now work with over 20 upcycled ingredients. Everything from powders like upcycled argan powder, argan shells from the argan oil industry, to upcycled olive stones that are a byproduct of making olive oil, to extracts which come in oil form, so things like upcycled raspberry and blueberry extracts, all the way to even upcycled water, which is important because it's one of the most prominently used ingredients in skincare. So we have upcycled bergamot water, mandarin fruit water, and even kiwi water that we take from the juicing industry. So really, I think what Upcircle represents is the potential of upcycled ethos, basically, in business. Arguably, the beauty industry is quite shallow, quite fickle. So we want to prove that if we can convince people to use would-be waste ingredients on their skin, then no other industry has an excuse not to embrace the circular economy.
Fantastic. And Krisi, it'd be great to hear a bit more about Bird & Blend and what you guys are up to and what your packaging portfolio is like at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bird & Blend is the UK's, or I guess the world's, expert tea mixologists, which mean that we use ingredients from all over the world to create wonderful, flavourful and innovative tea blends, so tea blenders essentially. We started 10 years ago and sell mostly direct to our consumers, so we've got 14 retail stores across the UK and a website that ships internationally. And unlike our competitors, when we set out to build a business, my business partner Mike and I, it wasn't necessarily coming from a place of being a tea expert or a tea lover, like other people in the food and drink industry, which is a bit peculiar. We actually came upon tea as the opportunity to build a business that we thought would be able to do business in a better way. So I've had, 30, 40 jobs by this point when I was in my 20s, and I just saw companies doing things in a way that I thought was unethical and not really contributing to the world around them. And what we really wanted to do was, our mission statement was to prove that you could build a successful company that bases its decisions on people and planet and not just profit. So from day one, even as a very, very small startup, just the two of us, like in a back bedroom, my mum's back bedroom, packing tea, we tried to make decisions mostly around packaging that were as environmentally sustainable as possible. And over the years, that goal and that strategy has evolved further. So over the last couple of years, we've been able to make some real dents in our impact, not just in our packaging, but on the wider industry, our supply chain as well, which has been really exciting. So, yeah.
Great, and I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. So we're here to talk about circular economy. With packaging specifically, we often see that there's so many options available. It's a really saturated market. Packaging suppliers love to claim that they're recyclable, recycled, bio-based, compostable, but does it actually do that, and is it actually right for your kind of product? So it would be great to hear about your advice on choosing the right option for your brand. And Krisi, you mentioned that you've been really drilling down into this issue for the past couple of years. So what did you learn from that process?
Yeah, so when we started the business, wherever we could, we would choose an option that was either made from recyclable materials or that was ideally biodegradable and or compostable. So since day one, all of our tea bags have been plastic free and biodegradable, and all of our consumables, bar 2 items, were compostable as well. Now, these 2 tricky items were actually quite essential. They're the envelopes that our tea bags come in, like the tear envelopes, and also our pouches that store large amounts of loose leaf tea for perhaps our wholesale clients or for people that buy bigger amounts. And the reason that we couldn't get the right off-the-shelf packaging was because with tea, the oils that are in the tea are they do degrade. So we couldn't find anything off the shelf. We could find it's recyclable, but that's curbside recycling. We weren't convinced that was going to actually get that. And I think that's the key, is that the problem isn't necessarily that our customers aren't trying to recycle. It's that how much of that actually gets to to a good place. So when we set out, we looked for something that could be home compostable, which was quite difficult because it had to maintain freshness for a certain amount of time and then biodegrade very quickly in home compostable environments. So it was really tricky, is the long and short of it. But we managed to find a supplier who was going to work with us on producing this packaging. So we had it custom made with the supplier. It took 18 months to do, and lots of trial and error, but we finally managed it. And I think the great thing about it as well is that we've worked with the supplier so that now, and left it open source. So we didn't patent it or anything. So other companies now that have similar products to us can now benefit from that same packaging as well. So hopefully that's helping in general.
Fantastic. And Anna, you mentioned that you have refillable formats, but I understand that the ethos of upcycling also goes into what goes into the packaging in the first instance with recycled glass and other materials. So it'd be great to hear about that and how you can choose the right things with the right feedstocks, but also that you can reuse or recycle.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, it's an incredibly complex issue, and there really is no right answer. There are other brilliant brands out there who make similar products to us who choose completely different packaging formats. Our ethos is to try to find materials which are recycled in the same way all over the planet. So we now sell in over 45 different countries, so it's important that we're not just using materials that are recycled here in the UK, even though the UK is our best customer base. We also need packaging that can be sterilised and refilled with our refill scheme, because that's what we really want to grow and that's what we really want to promote, not even having to recycle the packaging at all, but literally refilling it over and over and over again. That's why we have glass and aluminium as the primary packaging materials that we use. But again, glass isn't perfect, it's heavy. It takes water to produce it. But there are other bio options out there which, whilst they might use, let's say, less plastic, I think sugarcane is quite a good example. You can get sugarcane packaging, which is, let's say, 60% less plastic, but it's still mixed with plastics. And sugarcane harvesting is problematic when it comes to the local wildlife that it disrupts, etc. So There's just no right answer, because sugarcane, for example, would be less carbon intensive because it's lighter. So we've gone through, we debate this topic every single day, to be honest. And similarly to you, trying to find packaging formats which are just as suitable for an oil-based product, as a complete liquid product, as a powder product, as a product that has grain like an exfoliator, is an absolute minefield. So I think what we do commit to is constantly evolving. We've got our eyes open all the time. We're always going to packaging expos and keeping our finger on the button of the latest innovation in packaging, because it is frustrating as a brand founder when you are responsible for the formulations that you create, the tone of voice, the branding, all of those things. But ultimately, I don't produce packaging. So we are having to pick from what's available on the market. It's also important that it's fit for purpose, right? So take a serum, for example. Would you rather pour a serum out of a bottle into your palm with an aluminium cap, or would you rather have a pipette which has got a little bit of rubber in it and a little bit of plastic? Or you can choose an option where at the base of the pipette it's made of wood, but then just that individual decision means that the price of the product might double. The most expensive product in our range comes in at under £30, and that's always been really important to us as a brand. I was only 22 when we launched, and what I used to find most frustrating is that I had my own values, I had my own ethics, I wanted to buy all vegan, all sustainable, but I couldn't financially. And with everything that's going on in the world, cost of living crisis, etc., we have this tough juggling act between placing so much of a budget for our products on the packaging itself, or just coming up with new innovative ways to keep that packaging in use for as long as possible. So that's why we invest in our packaging return scheme. We also have little repeat order options that we offer globally. So you can buy a serum with a plastic dropper, but then we also offer it with just an aluminium cap. So once you've bought your first bottle, you keep that dropper and you simply swap it at home. It's so simple, it's so easy, and it solves a problem. But ultimately, you have price in mind, you've got recyclability in mind, usability, all of these things that you have to do at the same time. And it's not easy, but we do constantly evolve. We make changes all the time in order that we get better and better with those choices.
Got it. And you've mentioned there are a number of factors that are important in communicating sustainable packaging to customers. How do I recycle this? How do I reuse it? Do I need to use the product differently? So Krisi, what advice would you have on communicating changes in packaging with customers and engaging with customers? I know you both mentioned the importance of having things that just can't leak out of the system as easily, that are recyclable in all markets and you can compost at home. But what else can we do to engage with customers on this?
Well, we're lucky because our customer base shares we attract people with like-minded values. I think as we've grown, it's become more important to make it as clear as possible to new customers that perhaps as we've got larger, they've not got quite the same values, but so there's an opportunity to educate there and make it easy for them to understand why we do things and what they can do with their packaging and how they can help. So there have been some tough decisions. The same, things like our pouches with the tea, the smallest one is about this big, and the information the easiest thing for the customer is to put the information on there of exactly what to do with it, right? This is what you need to do with it. Put it in your home compost, you need to chop it into small bits, etc., etc. And so you have to, we've decided that it's better that it's so important to us that it's better to use the space on the packaging to explain that in full, so that it makes it as easy for the customer as possible. Because otherwise what you're doing is investing in packaging decisions that are, in theory, better for business and for the environment. But if you're not clearly communicating it to the customer at the end point, then you've kind of wasted that, to some extent. But we also do training across our customer service teams as well. So we have a section on the website that says exactly what's in each packaging and what to do with it. Make sure our customer service team is trained, make sure our store team members are trained so they can have those conversations. And I guess the other thing is that we've just tried to not fall into that trap of certain certifications or certain labels and things you can just throw on there as a brand, and yes, it might make the consumer feel like they're doing a good thing, and it might help you sell more tea, and especially in grocery, you see that a lot. Let's just throw this label on it and it means we're doing good or whatever. We've tried to stay away from that, and we just take the view that over time, if we do what we believe, do the research and do what we believe is right, rather than trying to succumb to the latest certification or logo or whatever, that over the long term, that authenticity will pay back, and involving more people in the right conversations and communicating clearly with them will pay off. It is challenging though, because with some of the packaging changes we've made, so for example, we moved our tin supplier to a UK manufacturer as soon as we could, and we're the same, we offer refills in store as well. And we also, when we moved our pouches over, we moved from like a craft finish to a different colour. So when we did both of those things, they were better environmentally, but customers started saying things like, oh, where's your environmentally craft pouches gone? You know, because they're now blue rather than craft, and you're having to explain that actually these ones are actually way better. The other ones just looked, you know, eco because they were brown. And with the tins, we had problems with the lids, so the manufacturer couldn't do a lock lid. So again, similar to you know, with use, you want the customer to have the best use, but also you've got to balance your environmental, you know, gains. So with that, we just we keep an eye on. We have a community group called Brew Society that are our like most engaged customers, and I'm on that with them. And at the moment, like a thread comes up, you know, a couple of people talking or getting confused, we will then produce content around that. So videos behind the scenes, me talking about it, explaining it, and then we put that out across our marketing channels. And actually, when we do videos like that and content like that, the engagement of anything that's even just like talking to the camera, showing the warehouse and, you know, that sort of thing, gets a way better engagement and results than some of our, you know, really planned marketing campaigns, which is annoying.
I couldn't agree more.
You know, so I think people are interested and they want to know, and they like the fact you're answering their questions and being involved in that conversation. Yeah.
Got it. And I'd say that also part of this is overcoming confusion. So if I'm at our event here and I use a tea bag and then I go home and use a different brand of tea bag, if they're both compostable, if they all do the same thing, that would be great. So I don't have to look for different instructions for every time. And Krisi, you've already talked there about the importance of open sourcing innovation for this, but I wanted to close off with getting your view in more broadly. What is the role of smaller consumer goods brands to challenge and enable the rest of the industry to raise that baseline and move together faster on sustainability?
Yeah, I think some of the things that have been a challenge for us is that even though we've done some really good things, we've been a bit nervous in the past as a small company of kind of sitting on a pedestal and saying, oh, we think we're doing some good stuff for the planet, because we don't have a big budget behind us, and there are bigger companies out there that are, in theory, doing much, you know, doing things that are way more impactful. So we kind of had to get over that fear a little bit, and we decided that although we were small, there's actually some benefits with that. You know, we're more agile, we think more creatively about solutions, we reach out to partners similar to us and, you know, our supply chain, and say, like, how can we tackle this together? And I think that's important. I mean, the whole concept, we've got our B Corp certification just a couple of months ago, and the whole concept is about balancing people, planet and profit. And I think if as a smaller company, if you are working with and investing in, whether it's in your marketing, who you use for marketing, people in your supply chain, your packaging suppliers, if you're investing in other businesses, partnerships with other businesses, and spending your money with other businesses that have those more aligned, then collectively we're able to prove that that's a better way of doing business. And I think over time that will mean that some of the bigger boys will have to pay attention to that, because ultimately for them it's about cash, right? So if we can prove that doing business in that way is generating, you know, the same amount of commercial benefit, then hopefully it would encourage bigger companies to also put their sustainability goals first.
And Anna, same question to you. How can smaller challenger brands create ripples across the wider beauty industry? And as you mentioned, this is an industry that's fickle, it's trend-led, people really care about how stuff looks, about the price point. So how can Upcircle influence the wider beauty community?
Well, I think I'd just build on everything that you've said. I was sat there like a nodding dog while you were speaking. It takes me back to when we started, where myself and my brother, who co-founded the brand, were not fully experienced in the beauty industry. We were not expert dermatologists or whatever else. We just had a really great idea, and there was a massive gap in the market for this kind of approach in beauty and in skincare. But naturally, we sought as much advice from people who had been in the industry for a long time, seeking mentorship and obviously investment and all the rest of it. And over again, even on Dragon's Den, which we did in the early days, we were told, look, it's a cool concept, it's a really interesting idea, but don't lead with it. You know, no one's ready for this, it's too forward thinking. And we kind of believed them, because ultimately that's why you seek advice, right? But then 2 years into our journey, we had to go through a full rebrand to undo all of that. And ever since, we've been unapologetically bold in the ownership of upcycling as our entire brand. And yes, it's a cool idea, but actually we are ready. People do want to see this kind of innovation, and there does need to be education about the fact that byproduct ingredients aren't in fact old, unclean, dirty, of lesser value, etc. The performance of the products is just as good, if not better. But transparency is important, and trying to find what certifications people really care about is also extremely helpful. So we also got our B Corp certification a couple of months ago, which was an incredibly long process for us, because of course our supply chain is doubly complicated because it has a whole extra chapter before we even get to it. And we also lead with sort of talking about the faults, I guess, and the fact that we're still on a journey. So another certification that we have is being plastic negative. So what that basically means is that we put our money where our mouth is. We fund impact projects in Goa in India, paying the wages of waste workers to recover multi-layered plastics from the coastlines. And we do that to counteract the impact that our brand does naturally have, because it's not just about your direct use of materials, but also indirect use. So goods into your warehouses that you can't really control, larger retailers requiring pallets to be wrapped in plastic, etc., etc. So I think, you know, we explain that we're on a journey. We communicate relentlessly through endless channels the things that we're doing, dispelling myths, talking about pros and cons, and ultimately we catch the attention of big brands, because in 7 short years we've grown and are continuing to grow at a horrifying rate. And on a recent talk I did, I had the brand manager of Innocent Smoothies saying, my God, how have you done it? And for me that was such a not a turning point, but a real career moment, because I thought, wow, yeah, this is me and my brother a few years ago who just thought we had a cool idea but had no experience. And ultimately, if you just go for it, and you go for it transparently, admitting your flaws and your growth along the way, then eventually you will catch the attention of big brands by proving that it can be done.
Great. Well, Anna, on your note of courage, and Krisi, on your note of collaboration, I will bring our conversation to the end. Thank you both so much for your time. As you both mentioned, packaging is a minefield to negotiate, so many different options, so many different topics. So thank us for helping to unpack, pardon the pun, this topic. And I look ahead to what's to come for these challenger brands as well. We'll be back with you throughout the course of ED23 with more talks from the Susty Talks sofa. But for now, it's a goodbye from Krisi, Anna and myself. Goodbye.